Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. So, now we will discuss that whether this monopoly equilibrium or the optimum output quantity choice, what monopoly is deciding to maximize his profit, whether that is socially optimal at all or not, or whether there is any because of this kind of monopoly element or monopoly producer, monopoly is getting some positive profit. No, you have seen that, right? So, whether that positive profit is creating some social welfare loss or anything, that we will discuss now. Okay. So, this kind of one important concept we will tell here, that actually what we have derived in the last lecture, you will see that price whole into 1 minus 1 upon elasticity, that should be MC, because this entire thing is the MR, right. MR equals to MC is the profit maximizing condition that we have. So, we can write that price will be MC by this third bracketed component 1 minus 1 upon E. Okay. So, this we can write that MC into 1 by 1 minus 1 upon E. Okay. So, this is the thing that, so monopoly is a price setter or price not taker, rather price maker, right. So, he is setting his own price, how much price he will set for each unit of his product what he is producing, right. So, when he is setting price, what strategy he will follow? This strategy he will follow. Whatever marginal cost he is facing, okay, he will make marginal cost into something to set his price, that into whatever the factor, that factor is greater than 1. Why that factor is greater than 1? Well, this elasticity value we told that should be greater than 1. So, this is greater than 1. 1 minus this is a positive fraction, 1 minus that thing is a positive fraction, say fraction means suppose 2/3. So, 1 by 2/3 is 3 by 2, right, greater than 1. So, since the denominator is a positive fraction, 1 by that is actually as a positive number and which is greater than 1, right. So, suppose I am a monopolist, so if it is this third bracketed term is greater than 1, we understood, right. So, suppose that is 3 by 2. Okay. So, if my marginal cost, whatever amount of output I am producing, okay, at that level if my marginal cost I am facing that say 100 rupees 100, I will set price of my product 100 into 3 by 2 per unit of my product, that much price. This much is my marginal cost into this factor. Okay. This factor sometimes is called markup factor, markup. So, monopoly is putting some more than one fraction multiplying with his marginal cost. So, markup factor is more than 1, this factor is called markup factor. Okay. So, markup factor is more than 1, and since this is the markup factor, this kind of pricing strategy of the monopolist is called markup pricing behavior, markup pricing behavior. Okay, markup pricing behavior of a monopolist, and that is why price is always above marginal cost. If you understand the diagram, this kind of marginal cost curve was there, say suppose this kind of marginal revenue was there, suppose this was the demand curve and this was the marginal revenue curve, right. So, we told this is the point where MR both the conditions are satisfied and he is setting this is the price, right. So, look at here, this is the marginal cost, but price is this, price is always above the marginal cost, right. So, markup pricing behavior is there. Okay. Now, we can ask, so if you can remember what was our equilibrium condition in a competitive market, there price equals to marginal cost, because there MR was exactly equals to price if the market is competitive, we have shown that, right. So, there if we ask was there any markup factor in the competitive market, or a competitive producer was simply price taker, okay, he was not making that his price. If I think this kind of price making behavior there also competitive market, I can think of, yes, he was also following some markup pricing kind of behavior where markup factor was only 1. So, he was setting his price equals to exactly MC into 1, markup factor is 1. So, MC. So, he was setting his quantity, that much quantity he was producing where market price, existing market price is exactly equals to his MC. Okay. How that markup factor equals to 1 you can reach? This entire third bracketed component should be 1. If this entire third bracketed component should be 1, so, if I think of that markup factor is 1 in a competitive market, so definitely this third bracketed term what was 1 by 1 minus 1 by absolute elasticity, this entire component should be 1. This entire component should be 1 means that this entire this first bracketed denominator should be 1, and first bracketed denominator should be 1 means this component should be 0. 1 by absolute elasticity, that component should be 0. When that can be 0? When elasticity thing is infinitely large. You know that in a competitive market demand curve is horizontal, a horizontal demand curve at every point, what is the elasticity value? Infinitely large. So, whatever we learn there, right, everything we are getting in a different way in the markup pricing behavior kind of sense. If we think of whether there, yes, we know that in a competitive market producer was not setting at all any markup pricing behavior kind of thing, he was taking the price simply, okay, he is a price taker. But even if we think that he was also setting his price, of course, he was putting that markup factor equals to 1. Okay. Just an extension, just a clarification kind of thing. We are enlightening ourselves with a little bit broadening kind of knowledge or understanding about the markup pricing behavior. Okay, that is the thing. So, monopoly will always set the price above the marginal cost because markup factor is more than 1. Okay, and as a result, monopoly is getting some positive profit. But the question is, due to this kind of behavior, okay, whether society is losing anything or not. Okay. Okay, let us go for a new diagram. Say suppose this is the demand curve, this is the MR curve, marginal revenue, and of course, we are measuring quantity this side and that side, all other revenues, cost, price, everything. So, this is the suppose in our notation AD kind of demand curve, okay, and suppose this is our MC line. I am not drawing all other curves, okay, total average total cost curve, average variable cost curve, though we are not drawing here because the target what is to discuss, those curves are not required to discuss them. Okay. So, at this point MR equals to MC and second order condition both are satisfied. So, this is the origin. So, it is telling that this much quantity should produce and this should be the price per unit of output. Okay. So, this should be OP star, this should be the price per unit of output and OQ star is the total amount of output he is going to produce. Okay. Now, the question is, if competitive behavior is what? Price equals to marginal cost, right. So, price equals to marginal cost kind of behavior if that producer follows, okay, how much quantity he should produce and how much price he should set. Look, this point, say suppose this is E point and this is suppose E1 point. At U1 point, this point, right, price equals to marginal cost because this is the demand curve, that is the price line, demand curve is the price line we have told, okay, and this is the MC line. So, if that monopolist follow competitive behavior, he should produce this much quantity and he should set this much price. If that is the case, what could be the total surplus generated within the society? This is the marginal cost line, right. So, basically this could be this upper triangular kind of area, this could be the consumer surplus and this lower area could be the producer surplus. If you can remember supply curve, because when we discuss surplus producer or consumer surplus, no, we had this kind of supply curve, this kind of demand curve, right, if you can remember, right, and we told that this was the producer surplus and this was the consumer surplus, right, where this is the demand curve, that is the supply curve, right. We have already learned that MC curve is nothing but the supply curve or supply curve, or a segment of the MC curve is the supply curve, right. So, we can think of that alternatively, say suppose if you produce until this quantity, no, say suppose this is Q1, what is your total cost? Suppose this is there is no fixed cost, this is a long run situation, this is the marginal cost curve, okay. It is a long run situation until OQ1 you are producing, okay. What is your total cost? Although average total cost curve is not here, through which we can easily derive the total cost, but I can tell that if I integrate this marginal cost, no, this area, this red color kind of area, okay, this kind of area, no, this kind of area red color, okay, that area is representing what? That area is representing basically integration between 0 to Q1 MCDQ, right. So, if marginal cost thing, if you integrate within a range, what you will get? You will get definitely total cost if there is no fixed cost, and if it is a short run, this thing will be total variable cost and fixed cost, if you add total cost you will get. So, we can tell that this producer, this monopolist, if he somehow behave competitive kind of solution or he follow competitive behavior, if he produce a Q1 amount of output and set price equals to say Q1 E1 per unit quantity, right. So, this upper triangular area will be the consumer surplus, no doubt about that, but the producer surplus will be this area, that is quite clear now, because his total cost is this and his total revenue is basically this green color rectangular area, this, because that much quantity he is producing and this much is the price per unit quantity, right. So, that is the total revenue, out of that this much of cost, this much, this area which we are representing integration of marginal cost, okay, within the 0 to Q1 within that range, right, that is representing his total cost. So, definitely this area is his revenue minus cost, that is the producer surplus. So, total social surplus could be generated within the society is this kind of area, okay. Suppose this is say P1, okay. So, A, suppose this is say Z, A, Z, E, E1, that kind of area, here is the E point, okay. That kind of area is the total social surplus can be generated in the society. Now, when he is behaving monopoly kind of thing, no, not competitive behavior, right, of course, he is producing less amount of quantity, OQ star is way below OQ1, right, less amount of quantity, and he is setting more amount of price per unit of the quantity. So, due to that, what is happening? Of course, first implication is that consumer surplus is curtailed from this larger triangle A, P1, E1, that could be the consumer surplus if this producer follow competitive behavior. Instead of that, if he follows monopoly behavior, consumer surplus is reducing from here to, suppose this is say E2 point, A, P star, E2, that area. So, consumer surplus is falling way above, okay. So, consumer surplus is falling, but producer surplus, because producer is now producing only this quantity and per unit quantity this much price he is getting, okay. So, this is his total revenue, this rectangular area. So, producer's total revenue is basically producer's total revenue, total revenue, sales revenue, here producer, because only one producer, monopoly, only one producer is there, that is apostrophe after that S we are writing. So, that must be P star E2 Q star O, that area, P star E2 Q star O, that rectangular area is the total producer's revenue. Out of that, this integration of MC dq 0 within Q star, because Q star is his output quantity when he behaves as a monopoly profit maximizer, right. So, that is representing basically this blue color shaded area, this area, okay, his total cost, okay, that is the this portion, okay. So, that is giving that basically this red color shaded area, this red color shaded area as the producer surplus. So, producer surplus is actually whatever the consumer surplus is falling, out of that this rectangular area is appropriated by producer as producer surplus, but this triangular area is the net loss of the society, okay. So, let us now, not that area is the net loss to the consumers and this area is the net loss to the producers. So, producers is losing this much and gaining this rectangular area, okay, but consumers are net losing this triangular area. So, if we draw a new appraise diagram, so what is happening, okay, this is the demand curve, okay, this is the MC line and suppose this is the MR line, this is the demand curve, right. So, output quantity is curtained from here to here, this is the competitive equilibrium, this point is competitive quantity choice, and this point is basically monopoly quantity choice. Okay. So, and price is, which price could be becoming say P1, that is becoming could be P1 in the competitive market. So, this is a competitive price, this is the monopoly price, competitive price, this is monopoly price. Okay. So, look at here, due to quantity curtailment, okay, what is happening, this area now which could be a part of the social surplus, that is getting lost completely, okay, because this down portion, this portion is this green colored portion of this overall shaded area, suppose this is A, B and C, this area. So, A, B, C is the total deadweight loss. Why deadweight loss? I am coming. Out of that, suppose this is K point, K, B, C, that loss is from the producer side, and A, K, C, this is the loss by the producers, this is the consumers. Because so many consumers are there, that is why after S apostrophe. Okay. So, AKC, this area is the consumers loss of the surplus and KBC is the loss of the producers of the surplus, but producers are gaining this additional surplus, which could be a part of the consumer surplus if he behave competitive, if he follow competitive behavior. Okay. Then this rectangular area could be a part of the consumer surplus. Now, that is appropriated, simply transferred from one group of the society to the another group of the society or another member of the society, from the consumers group to the monopoly. Okay. So, this segment is not at all a loss, but this segment, okay, is a loss to the society, because this is neither producer nor the consumers are gaining that. Okay. So, this is a deadweight loss A, B, C. So, monopoly, although getting a positive profit, okay, his profit as such is not creating any societal loss. What is making the loss for the society? because of his monopoly behavior, okay, total amount of output what is produced within the society, that is less, okay, and as a result some deadweight loss is generated within the society, which is a burden to the society. So, we can make a comment that monopoly solution or monopoly equilibrium is not an ideal equilibrium or desirable equilibrium for the society. Okay. Look at here, what is the source of this deadweight loss? People, or more specifically the customers who are lying between these two within this segment, what are their willingness to pay? Look at here, the person who is standing here, his willingness to pay is here, who is standing here, his willingness to pay is here. So, the people who are lying within this segment, which in our notation we are telling this is Q star and this is Q1 we are telling, right. So, segment within Q star Q1, within that segment, okay, whole lot of customers are there whose willingness to pay for that product is above the marginal cost of the producer or the cost of generating that product in the society. Producer when producing that additional unit, no, this additional unit, further additional unit and so on, he has to incur some additional cost. But whatever additional cost he is going to incur, people, potential customer who are there, they are willing to give an more than way above that additional cost. So, if somehow that transaction could happen, somehow this producer produce that commodity and customers purchase that commodity, both customer and producer can gain. As a result, some surplus could generate it within the society. That is not happening because of monopoly behavior. Okay. So, what I am telling that within that segment Q star Q1, within that segment, although profitable or mutually beneficial kind of transaction possibilities are open, because marginal cost is way below the marginal revenue kind of thing or willingness to pay by the customer. Okay. So, effective transaction possibility is open there, but because of monopoly behavior that transaction is not happening in the market, that transaction is not happening in the society. As a result, society is losing, and that loss is quantified by this ABC, this triangular kind of area. This is the deadweight loss of the monopoly behavior, which is a burden to the society. Okay. So, monopoly, to sum up, monopoly is not a desirable solution or outcome for a societal optimal welfare point of view. Okay. So, definitely then government will try to control that monopoly. So, certain discussions are there in your book, right. What should be the public policy or government policy towards a monopoly, right. So, 4 policies are there, it is mentioned in your book. So, you can nothing much to understand those things, you can read, you will understand. One thing is that, okay, to try to incorporate more competitive element. How we can do that or how government can do that? Okay, there is a monopoly producer, say you can see that in our childhood, maybe in 1970s, 80s, that time, right, that bath soap, if we in Indian market, perhaps only one variety of bath soap was there, Lifebuoy, and that time red color bar was there. These days to some oval kind of Lifebuoy, different types of bars are there. That time only one this kind of box kind of red color bars are there. Okay, this kind of that kind of bar was there. Okay, that is the only. So, that time who are the producer of that Lifebuoy bath soap, right? I think Hindustan Lever, which later becomes Hindustan Unilever. That company's name now it is Unilever, right? So, Hindustan Lever was the only like monopoly producer of that bar, if there is no other bar was available, bath soap bar was available in the market, right? So, eventually new producers are invented. So, that time suppose government is telling that if some new company comes, a new producer comes with another bath soap, okay, we will give from government side, we will give some incentive. Okay. So, as a result a new producer is coming, suppose they are coming with say new variety of bar called Lux. Okay. In that way new products coming, right. So, that through that kind of mechanism, if governments want to infuse or invite more competition within the industry, government can do that. We will give certain kind of benefit to the producers if you enter into the same sort of product market. If you want to produce same sort of product and sell in the market, right. So, that is one strategy, okay, incorporate more competition into the market. Regulation, government can regulate that monopoly, right. So, in India there is an act called MRTP Act, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. Through that act, this kind of acts in different countries have different acts, this kind of acts, and those acts together are called antitrust laws, antitrust laws. Okay. Those through that antitrust laws actually government used to control that monopoly, because when there is a monopoly element it has a tendency to produce less amount of quantity and try to extract more price for each unit of that commodity. Okay. So, government used to keep some thorough watch kind of thing or critical watch on their activities and all. MRTP similar kind of act in India, right. So, that is one way. In fact, you know that natural monopoly we have discussed, right. Natural monopoly where say this kind of thing, your average cost curve, average total cost curve is continuously falling, and suppose demand curve this kind. Okay. So, this is the total, whatever total quantity demanded in the market or by the entire society is there of that product, okay, within that segment, right. If one single producer is continuously producing, he will face more and more, or he will face more economies of scale. Okay. Average cost per unit of the product will be falling and falling, right. So, in that case, suppose government is telling that no, you have to follow the marginal cost behavior. Okay, a price equals to marginal cost behavior or competitive behavior. If government force that producer to follow marginal cost pricing principle, right, definitely that producer will be making loss, right, because your average total cost is falling, means marginal cost is below that average total cost. So, suppose this much he is producing, suppose this is demand curve. So, this is the demand curve, and suppose this is the marginal revenue curve. So, definitely he will produce price equals to, if government is forcing that price equals to marginal cost, right. So, this is the marginal cost. So, he has to face that much of price, and his average cost will be this much per unit, right. So, definitely this rectangular area with a negative sign will be his profit. So, he can't tolerate, he can't sustain. So, government has to give some subsidy, and that is why you will see that, and alternatively if he allows that no, you do monopoly behavior, it will generate some profit for itself, but it will generate parallelly some deadweight loss for the society. Okay. So, another thing is that say government can nationalize, say private monopolies are there, government can nationalize those private monopolies. Nationalize means what? Government is taking up them, okay, and telling that those are government entities. Exactly in that way you will see that the kind of examples we give where that natural monopoly is there, like telephone distribution, electricity distribution, water supply, you will realize that in real life all of these kinds of things, most of these kinds of things are controlled by the government or some government agencies, okay, like municipal authority, local government. Municipal authority means some local government, right. So, those kinds of agencies usually, because if you allow their monopoly behavior, it will create some deadweight loss to the society. If you allow or if you force them to follow competitive behavior, they will make some loss, and unless you give that subsidy to their loss, they will not be operating at all. Okay. So, best way is the government nationalize them, government occupying them. Okay. So, that is another strategy. So, these four are basically strategies what government or public authority can do towards monopolies. Okay. One is try to incorporate more competition, try to regularize the monopoly practices, right, keep a thorough vigil on their activities, right. Then other, you can nationalize those entities, private monopolies are there, you are making them public monopolies or nationalize national agencies or government agencies. Okay. And another is that doing nothing. Okay. Actually, there is a Nobel laureate economist called Stigler. Okay. He is sometimes told that in your book that story is there, you please read, you will get interest. Okay. He told that government should not do anything. Okay. Because whatever way government will try to intervene into this kind of monopoly market, none of them are having absolute beneficial effect. Okay. Some positive side is there, parallelly some negative sides also are there. Okay. So, in that way these are the basically the, so what, let me summarize what we have discussed. What is the monopoly's optimum? So, the producer who were operating earlier in a competitive market, if you allow that producer to operate in a monopoly kind of product market, what will be his quantity, optimum quantity choice, and we compare those with the competitive optimum output choice. So, definitely competitive optimum output choice will be more output quantity, monopoly will be less output quantity, and price will be in the monopoly in the more. Resultant is what is the implication? There will be some social welfare loss, deadweight loss will be generated by the monopolist. Okay. If that is the case, monopoly is not a desirable solution for the society. What public policy or government authority or social authority or country's authority can do, what kind of policies country authorities can take towards the monopoly. So, these kinds of 4 options are there. So, with this we complete our discussion of monopoly kind of thing. So, in the next class we will discuss that if this producer given his same cost structure, if he goes to operate in a monopolistically competitive kind of product market, what will be his optimum output decision, and so on. In this way we will complete oligopoly market as well. Okay. Let us stop here.